One of the ways that road taxi drivers are violating the law and ripping off customers in NSW is by overcharging them by tampering with meters or taking longer routes. This practice is illegal and unethical, and it harms the reputation of the taxi industry and the trust of the passengers. According to the NSW Taxi Council, when you hail a taxi on the street or get in a cab at a rank, including Sydney Airport, the driver must use the meter. If a driver asks for an upfront payment to ensure passengers don't run away without paying, they must still use the meter and give change at the end of the trip. If you use a booking service such as the 13 Cabs app, you will get an upfront fare estimate before the journey begins and a prepaid option. However, some taxi drivers are ignoring these rules and asking for inflated cash payments for off-meter trips. They may also try to take longer or less direct routes to increase the fare. This is especially common at busy times or late at night, when passengers may have fewer options or be less aware of their surroundings. Passengers who have experienced this problem have shared their stories on social media and in the news. For example, Douglas, who was traveling from Brisbane Airport with his family, was offered an upfront fee of $60 by a maxicab driver who wanted to find others to join the ride. He ended up paying $70 in cash for the trip, which would normally cost him about $42 using a ride-sharing app. Another passenger, Scott Rohde, tried to get a taxi from the Sydney CBD to St. Peter's in the Inner West. The driver said it would be $75 up front and wouldn't budge, so drove off when Rohde refused to pay. The trip would usually cost him about $25. These incidents are not only frustrating and unfair for the passengers, but also damaging for the taxi industry, which is already facing competition from ride-sharing services and other modes of transport. The NSW Taxi Council said it would be concerned if drivers are overcharging for regulated trips and urged passengers to report them so that appropriate action can be taken. The council also said there is no excuse for drivers to charge off-meter, as they are paid fairly and have access to financial support during COVID-19. So what can passengers do if they encounter a road taxi driver who tries to overcharge them by tampering with meters or taking longer routes? Here are some tips. Insist on using the meter and ask for a receipt at the end of any trip. Take note of the driver's ID and company they work for, which should be displayed clearly on the dashboard. If you are outside the vehicle, try to grab the car's registration and brand. Report the incident to the taxi service provider or call the Point-to-Point Transport Commissioner's 24-hour taxi fare hotline, 1-800-500-410. Use a booking service or app that gives you an upfront fare estimate and a prepaid option. Compare prices and options with other transport modes such as ride-sharing, buses, or trains. One of the ways that road taxi drivers are violating the law and ripping off customers in NSW is by driving recklessly or violating traffic rules. This not only puts the passengers at risk of paying more than they should, but also endangers their lives and the lives of other road users. According to the Point-to-Point Transport Commission, which regulates taxis and other ride services in NSW, taxi drivers must obey all road rules and drive safely at all times. They must also use the meter for every trip, unless they have a written agreement with the passenger for a fixed fare. Any driver who fails to comply with these rules can face fines, demerit points, suspension, or cancellation of their license. However, some taxi drivers are still refusing to use the meter or trying to charge extra fees that are not authorized by the Commission.